Welcome to Product by Design with Kyle and Eva,
a podcast about product management and product design,
where we'll talk about subjects from product strategy to inclusive design.
Every episode, we just have a good conversation about all the things that you may already know or not know, and occasionally we'll have a guest from maybe engineering or other product managers and designers to talk about all these topics.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Product by Design.
Long weekend, so I am free. Everyone is free. It's great.
That's right.
Yeah.
Recording on a Friday going into a long weekend. That's a good feeling, right?
Yeah, and the thing is outside, so it feels like, oh, we can actually go outside and do stuff, and it doesn't feel like we're burning in hell.
Not only that too, but I was looking at the weather. It's supposed to heat up over the weekend, but then it drops down. It drops down into like really good temperatures after that. Tuesday drops into like the high of 60. So it gets a little cold, but then it warms up like into the 70s and 80s after that. So we're talking like perfect fall weather going into the next little while, which is just amazing. I've got my fall mugs out and stuff. They've got like leaves on them. Yeah. Camping and stuff like that. So, I mean, I'm ready.
Real.
Yeah, it's real.
That is so funny. I never thought about like a seasonality for my drinkware.
Oh yeah. It's time.
I guess this is the time when, well, I guess this is not a usual year, but you start seeing Halloween and pumpkins and what is that thing called? Thanksgiving. That's what
I was gonna say pumpkin spice.
Oh, that too. I know people drink what do they call PSL from Starbucks?
Yep.
The pumpkin spice latte. I don't like pumpkin, so not my thing. And I am sure a lot of people are angry tweeting at me, hearing that I don't like pumpkin. I feel like that's like a very American thing. Like, I've never really cared for pumpkin until I moved here, and everyone's like, pumpkins. I'm like, what? Who eats that? Are you a pumpkin fan?
Yes, I would probably have to go with yes, just because it's grew up on them in some way or another. What was that?
It comes with a citizenship, right?
Yeah,
like,
just like a nostalgia thing. But pumpkin itself doesn't have a lot of like flavor or anything. I mean, it's the spices that go with it that kind of make it any good. Like if you just smell pumpkin by itself, it's not like a very pleasant smell. And I don't think you ever want to just like eat pumpkin.
That's such an offensive comment, Kyle. So many people are so angry right now. Like, what? Pumpkin's the best.
I don't know if anyone would disagree with that. I'd be interested now to see. I don't think there's anything about pumpkin itself that is great. Pumpkin pie, huge fan. But it's really like the spices and stuff that go into it that make it good. So
that is so true. I never thought about it. I mean, I don't really care about pumpkin, so don't really think about pumpkin all the time. But that is so true. I never thought about it this way. But I guess beans is kind of the same thing. Like you don't just eat beans.
No.
You eat it with stuff. That's such a weird way to think about Thanksgiving now. We're basically putting the sideshow like pumpkin, but in fact it's the pumpkin spice that is the star of the show.
It is, yeah. Pumpkin seeds are great too. Like
what do you do with that?
Oh, you put spice on them and bake them, and they're delicious for one and a really great source of like protein. So if you want like a straight shot of awesome protein, that's pumpkin seeds. It's a great place.
Any pumpkin farmers and distributors out there want to sponsor this podcast where we keep talking about pumpkins. And yeah. I guess, here's the thing. My husband loves pumpkins. So there will be some pumpkin paraphernalia from Trader Joe's showing up here very soon. Yeah. They have pumpkin Pop-Tarts. So I heard that's good. I tried one bite. Not really a pumpkin fan, so it just doesn't really do anything to me. But anyone out there that loves pumpkins, go try it. Trader Joe's. Yeah, I think it's about time they put out all their pumpkin stuff. Try it out. Pumpkin Pop-Tart.
It's definitely coming. And we have a pumpkin patch like just down the road from us too. And it is, we love going there. Like it's called Pack Farms. So we'll give a shout out to Pack Farms too.
Sponsor us.
Yeah. If you're
it's just a joke now. It's just like everyone sponsor us.
If you're up in the Davis County area, great place to go get some pumpkins. Pack Farms pumpkins out in Farmington.
I love this strong contrast of what we were talking about like 2-3 episodes ago when we were talking about like California burning. That was the last episode, I guess. And then murder hornets. What else? Earthquakes. And it feels a lot more calm. Maybe just the peace that comes with fall time. But I do feel like now I have accepted the truth that like, yeah, this is as slow as we go now. So fall. Who knows?
It's fall.
I don't want to
Everything's better about fall. So we needed to get out of summer. That's
let's not jinx it because I do feel like, well, actually fall is pretty short. So, and then we enter the never ending winter, 6 months long here in Utah. So I am not excited for that.
It's good for the first little bit. So you get the nice holiday season initially, but then you have to settle in for the real slog, which is like January through March, and just have to tough it out because there's not much to look forward to other than getting through it and getting into spring.
I don't know what happened in my brain just now, but I just fast forward to a couple things that will happen and probably has already happened is that every year in wintertime, I'm more at home and I use a lot more stuff in my house. And I guess that's kind of true starting from the beginning of this pandemic. And I suspect that is why I've started getting really sensitive towards like the difference between Hulu and Netflix and all these things, because I am a lot more like, oh, I'm here doing this one thing versus, oh, I am getting ready to go to work. But now it's just having a lot more dedicated time to interact with these different physical products or software products. I suspect that is the reason, which I think it's probably a big factor, if not all true. But yeah, we need to, I don't want to talk too much about the Netflix versus Hulu because we still need to record that episode. Lately, after we started talking about it, I see even more. Please stop me if I ever go into that direction. But man, it's like at the tip of my tongue. I do really want to say it out loud and scream at the top of my lungs. But let's change topic and go into what we were talking about today.
Okay, coming soon, Netflix versus Hulu to be continued. Yeah,
not sponsor us now. We get HBO Max to sponsor us.
There we go.
One day.
Yeah.
But today, what are we talking about?
Great question. So roadmaps, the thing that so many of us love and hate and probably hate some more, which is...
Raise your hand.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you hate or love roadmaps?
It's a great question. And the answer is yes.
Yes, you hate them, or yes, you love them.
It's probably a love-hate relationship because I think that there is some good things about them, but they also present some serious difficulties and are maybe misunderstood and misused. And so I think that that's part of the problem. Often. It's funny that we're talking about it today because it's actually there's been a couple articles that have come up recently, even just in the past couple of days. There's been some discussion on Twitter about roadmaps, and C. Todd Lombardo, who wrote a book about roadmaps, asked just yesterday, what's the point of roadmaps? Wrong answers only. And so there were some really good responses to that. Yeah, my response was to have something large, colorful, full, and very specific to put on your walls in your office and to put into presentations. And the more full and specific it is, the more roadmappy it is. Like that was
roadmappy.
Yeah. I think my favorite though, I'll have to look up who put it, but it was it was something along the lines of to help product managers remember the feelings of despair and and to not forget that among the other emotions that they're feeling. So that's the point of roadmaps, is to make sure that a product manager never forgets those negative emotions, which, I don't know, that almost hits a little too close to home sometimes. So, and there were a lot of good responses. You can look up that thread. Anybody who wants to hop onto Twitter and see some of the good responses. There were a bunch. Yeah.
Link us in the show notes. I really want to see that. That's great.
Yeah. But it did bring up some good points as far as, I mean, most of the responses were somewhat humorous around, what roadmaps aren't. But I think that it does bring up the idea that, roadmaps aren't meant to be certain things. It's not meant to be, kind of like we were talking about, a project plan. And it's not meant to be a specific feature list. I said it tongue in cheek that your roadmap is meant to be, full of lots of specifics and features and things like that. But ultimately, that's not what it's meant to be. And it's not. Yeah. What? And it's not meant to be a release plan. I think that that's another trap that a lot of product managers or other people can fall into, is when you think of roadmap, you think of almost a Gantt chart like artifact, where you have lots of timelines and lots of releases and things like that. And that's not what a product roadmap is. There's a place for a release plan. There's a place for a project plan. There's a place for all of that, but that's not what a product roadmap is, essentially. And that's where we fall into a lot of problems, is mistaking those two things or trying to overlap them in some way, because a product roadmap is something very, very different, and it's meant to be higher level. And so when we start to use it like that, when we start to use it like a project plan or a release plan or a Gantt chart with very specific timelines and lots of features and things like that, it starts to lose a lot of its value. That's where I think the hate relationship of that love-hate relationship starts to come in, is because then you start to lose some of the more important value that you can get out of your roadmap.
Interesting. So if they're not these things, then what are they, and how should product managers use them?
So a roadmap, when I think of it, is really fundamentally a strategic document that you use to help deliver on your product vision. So if you kind of think of it in a hierarchy, you have your product vision, which is what you're ultimately trying to achieve. And then you have under that your strategy. How are we going to achieve that product vision? And then you may have objectives and things like that that kind of help align your strategy with your vision. And your roadmap is part of that. It's part of your strategy. It's part of those objectives in helping to achieve that vision. It's much more higher level, and it's much more about ensuring that you're always pushing towards that ultimate strategic vision that you have, and making sure that everybody's aligned in that same direction and moving towards the same thing. And so it's not meant to get down to that tactical level of, here's exactly what we're doing. Here's when we're going to release it. It's meant to be much more, here are and we'll probably talk about this in just a second, but here are the higher level things that we're addressing. Here are the problems that we're solving for. And here is why we're doing it. Ultimately, this is the product that we're creating, the value that we're creating for our company and for our users, and why we're doing it. And making sure that everybody's aligned on that path and getting everybody basically on the same page, so that we're moving in the same direction, both from a stakeholder standpoint, from a customer standpoint, from a team standpoint. Once we do that, I think that that's really where a roadmap can be powerful, and not getting us kind of into that project plan or release plan or Gantt chart style planning, which again has its place, but that's not, when we're talking about roadmaps, that's not what a roadmap is for.
So would you say that, because when I hear release plans, that sounds like almost more engineering specific, or kind of like this is literally what we're shipping, but it doesn't necessarily paint the bigger picture that a roadmap can paint. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. You know, a roadmap. So if we think about, I think that a roadmap has a couple purposes, and you can probably add to this, and it depends on the circumstances that you're in as a product team or as a company. But for me, some of the purposes of the roadmap would be conveying the vision of the product. So what is it that we're trying to do, and why are we trying to do it? I would say another one is it's a tool for communication across the team, across the organization, for, you know, potentially for customers and users if you want to use it in that way. So, you know, again, it depends on the business and the team and how you're using your roadmap. I don't think that it's always appropriate for very specific customer facing roadmaps. And that's kind of an area you want to tread carefully in. But making sure that you have the right communication strategy for the right audiences. And so using your roadmap in that way, especially when you're talking about what are the problems that we're solving? What is it that we're doing? Why are we doing it? And here's, again, going back to that vision, here's the vision that we have for the product and how each of these things is helping us achieve that. I think that a roadmap is also a great tool for discussion. So especially when we're talking about our team, stakeholders, even users, making it a part of either a prioritization process or just a general discussion, it's something that you can utilize both in the communication and to facilitate a lot of the discussion that's happening. So I think it's a great tool for that. And then ultimately in getting the alignment that you need in order to make it happen. So that's kind of the last thing that I think of, just generally speaking, is making sure that you have that right alignment. I think that a roadmap is a critical part of that, because if you don't have alignment across the business, across your product team or teams, then you're not going to be able to ultimately deliver on that product vision that you have. And so having that roadmap, having everybody understand what it is you're doing, why you're doing it, really helps with the alignment of an organization, of a company, of a team. And so I think a roadmap is a critical part of that. And so again, it's keeping it higher level so that everybody can understand, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it. And we'll talk a little bit more about, what are some of those higher level components, but it helps align everybody in the same direction, not necessarily around like features, we're going to do feature X, Y, and not ABC, but here's the things that we're focused on right now versus some of the problems that we're not focused on right now and why we're focused on them. We're focused on, we'll give an example, we're focused on activation and retention. We're not focused on, some other issues within the general scope of the product. And so problems that may fall outside of those main things might not be a main focus of the roadmap right now. And that's okay, because, we know what we're doing and we know why we're doing it. And, features or things that fall outside, we know that they're going to be prioritized further down. We know that we're going to be addressing them further down on the roadmap, but we have kind of our main focus for right now. And so it really helps everybody align around kind of some common goals and a common purpose. So that's kind of some of the main purposes of a roadmap, in my opinion.
I think that in my mind, the way I kind of summarize what you just said is kind of like a roadmap is not necessarily like a blueprint that depicts all, like you said, features and all these granular components, but it acts more like a compass to, direct everyone, make sure we're all on the same page and using this compass to get us to where we need to go. And I also feel a lot when you mention like, oh, there are things that might not fit into that vision at that time for that, roadmap, but then the feeling of like, oh, but this is still important. And then, but knowing that we're deprioritizing these things for, a very specific purpose with an actual plans, that also helps to align everybody of why we're doing this now versus later, and why we're doing feature ABC later. So yeah, I see the importance of it. And you mentioned there are multiple parties that should be involved in the, process of building that roadmaps, and because we want to get that alignment, right? And who are some people that you think are super necessary to be involved from the beginning, building a roadmap? And yeah, just tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that in creating a roadmap, it's such a collaborative process that it has to, for a product, it has to start with really the, kind of the trifecta of that, the product leadership group, which, now typically consists of the lead engineer, the product design lead, and the product manager for that product group. And I think that that's kind of the core starting place. As far as roadmaps go, I think that it still fundamentally resides with product management. As I think one of the fun sayings is like, if there's going to be a throat to choke, like it's the product manager's throat to choke if it's not done and if it's not done right, but they can't do it alone. And so, I think that that's where it starts. And then they have to get quite a few other people involved in order to make sure that there's buy-in and alignment across just numerous other groups. And that, depending on the business, would include, other business stakeholders, sales, marketing, in depending on the industry, legal and compliance teams. Some of the, it's definitely, I think some that come to mind immediately would be marketing and sales, and then, key business stakeholders, just because those will be like the immediate ones who are interested in, what's coming down the pike right now. Because sales a lot of times will be the ones out selling sometimes features. And so if they're trying to sell or get new clients or customers based on, what are some of the new features coming, then, they're going to be very interested in what is our next set of features? When are we going to be able to get them? How soon is it going to be? And so that's typically a problem for a product manager and their roadmap, because a lot of times things will start to devolve from there into, okay, now we need to get certain features because sales is asking for it because it will get us this client and that sort of thing. And so, as most good product managers will know, we don't want to create roadmaps based on that. We don't want to prioritize based on that. And so we need to really understand why, customers are asking for things and start to prioritize problems, and then make sure that our roadmaps are still reflecting the high level problems that we're trying to solve and are still focused on the right things for, the business, based on, again, going to that vision and strategy, and then those main objectives that we're trying to achieve. And so not getting into kind of that spiral of, we need to do this because marketing or sales is asking for it, but how can we still stay focused on what are the key problems that we need to be solving for? And then keeping it open for, how can we achieve the right outcomes based on, what we're trying to do with, not just with our product, but with the roadmap.
Yeah, I feel like you just said so many things that kind of, that I can translate to other, I guess, principles or disciplines that we uphold. Like, for example, when you were talking about taking care of what sales and marketing might need, and then kind of ingesting all these different requirements from all different angles while you're building that roadmap. I feel like on a product team, doesn't matter what your role is, like everybody has to talk to other people and just like get that alignment. Doesn't matter. I mean, right now we're talking about roadmap, but I mean, same when we do any, I guess when we build a feature, we have to understand all angles. Why do we need to build the way we do, considering how the customer is going to use it and how, what tech limitations we have. It's kind of the same theory of taking in all the requirements. Why are we building this roadmaps, and not just the product manager by themselves cranking it out with a closed door.
Yep.
So I think that, yeah, definitely something that, yes, let's all do it together. I really love that. And another, I don't know why I keep thinking about these different visuals in my head, but I can also see it as like a Thanksgiving dinner menu where you have to take care of everyone's needs so that people are not showing up to a meal that is like, wait a minute, why is this happening? Like Johnny's vegan. Why is this all meat? Like sales have different needs than, sometimes design might have, or I think that that's very, very a difficult job to do, to make sure everybody is taken care of. And so, yeah, I mean, I respect all product managers that are able to do this. It is a lot of work to keep everyone aligned. This also reminds me of one idea that I learned from a design talk by, what's his name? Matt. I cannot confidently say his last name. And that's the name I cannot say. It's Strom, Strom. Mm-hmm. It's like storm, OR flipped. He talks about his experience at Bit.ly, and he said one thing in that talk that burned into my mind is, if you bring everyone in from the beginning when you start building something, then you don't have to get buy-ins at the end. And that's a much easier process than at the end. What if somebody's like, well, that's opposite of what we need. And what do? You cannot just scrap it and start over. Right. Yep. So I think you cover all the bases. So that was a great answer. Yeah. And on that same train of thoughts, like how do we know when we're building, putting the wrong things in the roadmap, or how do we, is there anything to watch out for during that process of building a roadmap? Yeah,
I think that's a great question. So there's some principles that I like to follow, and then there's, I think, the components of the roadmap for me. And this is pretty loose. I mean, this is what I found to be the most effective, and I think that there are others out there that are good. I mean, if you Google roadmap, I think most of the things that will come up will look very much like a Gantt chart. And so I think that that's a huge problem. But for me, I think some of the principles, like some of the key principles, are to focus on the outcomes that you're trying to achieve. So rather than what are the outputs that you're going to be doing, really try and flip it into what are some of the outcomes that you want either your users to have or your business to have, and really keep a focus on that on your roadmap. So it becomes far less about features and the things that you're kind of putting out there, and much more about what are the outcomes that you're going to be driving. And then you touched on a really good point about the varying different groups that we need to be working with. And man, I've got so many stories about what you talked about. Like, it's so much easier to bring people in early than it is to try and get them in later and get buy-in. Like, if it's so true. And when you're working with so many different groups, like, you really need to understand those different audiences, because they have different needs and they have different perspectives. And so you really need to present your roadmap often in kind of a different way or a different light for various audiences. And so, I mean, that doesn't mean it needs to be like completely different, but you need to kind of understand the perspective that each of those groups is coming with, and how to speak their language in a way that they understand, like, okay, we get it. We get why we're kind of doing things in a certain way. And, if it's sales, why aren't we talking about all of the features that we're going to be launching? Well, we're not doing that because if we get bogged down into features, then it becomes much more difficult to back that out into the outcomes for our clients. And so being able to speak much more to, here's ultimately what they want to do. Here's how we're going to get them there. It may not be with a specific feature. So let's not get them tied down into a specific feature. Let's get them thinking more about what it is they want to achieve and how we can get them there. So, and then really keeping it high level and keeping it up to date, I think, is just really critical. Once you start to get down into more of that release plan, feature list, project plan type thing, then it starts to become just much more difficult and much less about the roadmap and the vision and the strategy, and much more about, here's what we're releasing. So keeping those separate, I think, is really important, because your roadmap should be longer term. I mean, we're talking a roadmap of like 12 to 18 months. And if you think you can plan out like feature releases for 12 to 18 months in advance, like you're absolutely crazy. Yeah. Yeah. If you've been able to successfully do that, then we need to hear from you because
come on as a guest. We want to learn. I mean,
yeah. Maybe you're not crazy. Maybe you're absolutely incredible. Yeah. You'll
Who's
be
drawing the line?
Yeah, you'll be the guru of roadmaps, and we'll have to just go and delete this episode and delete everything we knew about roadmaps and planning. And
internet forever, Kyle.
Yeah.
But roadmap is not forever. It can change. Right?
Yes, it can. And that kind of is the last point, is that a roadmap can and should change, and it shouldn't be anything set in stone, and it should be updated frequently. And so it should be with that caveat. And so that's, those are some of the principles. And I think like the actual components of a roadmap, this is the way I kind of view roadmaps, and as just kind of a rough outline, is that it should have like if we're talking very specifically about a roadmap, it should have the vision of what you're trying to do. So that should be part of it. It should have like your objectives of what it is that you're trying to achieve. So how do those things tie to the vision, and also how you're going to measure it. So I like the, some sort of results of measurement. So metrics or key results or something like that. And then some rough time frames. So I know hopefully that doesn't sound like heresy, but boxing it in some way. We're not talking about like, here's the days that we're releasing it or even months, but I think quarterly is a great way to do it. You can, slice it up in different ways, but here's the timeframes that we're focused on, and then using themes. I'm a big fan of themes for roadmaps. So here's the, what we're focused on within, this quarter. So if we're talking about Q1, for example, here's Q1, here's our objective, and here's some of the themes that we're focused on. We're focused on retention and activation, or activation and retention. Those are our two big things. And then, we may have some hypotheses that we're testing out with that. And out of those are ultimately going to come some features that we're going to release. We know that, like that the whole point of this is to build something that we can get into the hands of our users that is going to increase our activation and retention. But that's not what we're not putting those features like specifically onto our roadmap. We may eventually, as if we get specific enough, but that's more of like our project plan and release plan. I'm even kind of okay with it. Like as you're getting very near to it and can kind of put more concrete things into your roadmap, like very near term, and then keeping it much more thematic as you get, Q2, Q3, Q4, so that you're just giving some idea of, Q2, our objective is around user management, and our themes are going to be, identity and, whatever else comes with that. And those are some of the things we're going to be focused on. And then Q3 is the same thing. And then again, going back to what you said, is that having the disclaimer and all of that it's subject to change, that we're going to be learning and testing and all of that, and that this isn't set in stone. Like we will be adjusting as needed. So we're not promising that we're going to be launching new user management features in Q2. Like if there's something that needs to be adjusted, we'll adjust it. But right now, here's what we're focused on. Here's what we're going to be planning on. And, here's how our roadmap is looking for the next little bit, so that people can plan, because it's not fair to ask everybody in the business to just, hey, trust us. We're the product team over XYZ product, and, we'll take care of it, because lots of people are depending on our products, and they need to have an idea. There's lots of interdependencies, and there's lots of things that other teams need to do, whether that's training or client relationship management or things like that they need to be in the loop on. And so we need to help them understand when they may need to ramp up their training teams, or when they may need to be having client conversations or things like that, so that they're not caught off guard when those things happen, but also helping them understand too that it's not something that we're going to be building this specific feature in the third week of March. And so you can plan on it the first week of April or something like that. Like that's way too specific.
Yeah. This whole process just, again, man, I really do think that product managers have to be the best communicator on their team because there are just so many moving pieces. I mean, and I've seen it happen too, is that really things just, it can keep changing. Like your roadmap can look very different, you know, a week ago compared to tomorrow. Right. And it really depends on, this sales requirement comes in and it's super urgent, and then it's gonna, you know, deprioritize everything else or whatever it is, and things happen. And what you've talked about, like just keeping everyone informed, and that communication just seems so important in this process. And I think it also helps for other, you know, our counterparts to go out with the truth of what actually, you know, happened and why this is done this way. So then even though sometimes what they ask for might not be able to fit into the roadmap, this, you know, immediate future, that they know why, and they can, you know, speak to that in their other environment that they have to go back to communicate that. I think that's so important too, man. But yeah, I really feel like product managers are also just people that are planners, and they have to keep on planning, and the planning just keeps on happening which is, a lot of work, and much respect for all the product managers out there.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I mean, it's kind of a perpetual process, which again goes back to, I think, that love-hate relationship of why it's so difficult and why it's often misused, the roadmap, or at least misperceived in many ways, and just some of the difficulties that it causes, because I think a lot of people want roadmaps to be a lot of different things, and they're not meant to be promises or, you know, specific releases as much as we want. I think any product manager would love it if we could say, yes, you know, we'll be releasing, you know, we have a great plan for the next 12 months. We'll be releasing all of the things that everybody wants. And, you know, here's exactly when it will come. And you can just, you know, everybody get in line and wait. And, you know, here's on, you know, your specific feature is going to come out, you know, the third week of March, and yours is going to be the second week of April. And
Friday,
I mean,
2 p.m.
Yeah. And everybody, I think if it was like that, everybody would probably be pretty happy in some way, because you would have a lot of certainty. You would, you know, even if yours was down the line a little bit, you could at least know that, like, yeah, it's there. I know exactly when it's coming, and it's, you know, just have to keep everybody updated and in line, and, you know, there's not going to be any changes or any problems with that. But unfortunately, it's just the vast amount of uncertainty that we deal with in not just product development, but in the world in general, with the amount of changes that are constantly happening, and the difficulty in estimating and understanding the complexity of all of the interactions of not just code, which is one level of complexity, but just humans, which is a completely new level of complexity that we introduce. So it's difficult.
I mean, one example I can think of is that even this year, as you can imagine, like Zoom just blew up, right? And then Google Meet, what we're using right now, became, you know, a big thing this year. And I'm just like thinking behind the scenes, like, what happened to the lives of these product managers in the past like few months? Like, are they sleeping? Are they eating? You know? And same thing for like telemedicine and health industry. Like, so many things happened, and you being the person, you know, that holds the key of things happening, like it's you just cannot plan, you know, a year later, we're going to have these features out, right?
Yep.
Things can change so quickly. But again, I think that speaks to the ability to be able to say, oh, okay, we can't go this direction. Okay, what do we do now? And that ability is, again, I just want everyone to go back and buy their product manager's lunch or something, because there's so much that can happen. And yeah, this is a lot of moving pieces. And within that too, I do want to ask, so how do you handle these constant changes, or I guess, let's say you planned your roadmap, like let's say yesterday you presented it all to stakeholders, everyone's happy, sales is happy, everyone's happy. And then next week, some changes happen that you foresee will derail, your entire roadmap. Like, what's the first thing you do as a, product manager?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So hopefully it's not happening like super frequently. And I know that can vary by organization. I think in good organizations that will happen less frequently, where it's, more product focused. And so, those types of surprises aren't being kind of introduced all the time. I think it's kind of a mark of some dysfunction if like that sort of thing is just happening constantly. Like there's some real underlying dysfunction. But when that does happen, like there are obviously things that happen. COVID-19 hits, or like those types of things, or, just massive either opportunities or market changes or things like that just come in and shift the entire landscape. And it's like, how do we either react to this or, change our plan or do things? And I think that it's almost just like anything, kind of a taking in of all of the new information and adjusting it based on that, as if not necessarily as if you were starting from scratch, but, just an additional data point or an additional set of data points that you add in and basically reconfigure based on all of the new information. And so, those, I feel like those types of things happen. And whether it's big or small, I feel like you're constantly readjusting and kind of redefining what your roadmap is going to look like based on, client feedback and user feedback and things that you're getting and, stakeholder feedback. So it can be a massive shift that happens, and, that could change things a little bit more dramatically than you would otherwise anticipate. But I feel like the principles are still the same. Like you don't want to be so tied into what you've kind of set out that you're not able to adjust and make changes. Because I feel like that's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, where you create a plan. And I've seen companies do this too, where you kind of go in, create a 12-month plan, and you're like, okay, we've got our plan and we're going to stick to this regardless of what happens. Like, this is it, over the next 12 months, this is how we're going to execute, what we're going to do, without much room for adjustment. Obviously that's going to be fine for like the first, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 months. But if you're not able to adjust and make changes, then, the world is going to pass you by, and all of the feedback and things that you should be getting, you're going to miss a lot of changes that you should be making. And so taking that in, whether it's, all of the sudden day 2 and you need to readjust, or it's, day 30, day 40, and you're just constantly kind of making those iterations. Hopefully it's not something that is like out of the ordinary that you're like, oh man, we just need to completely redo everything because we had a beautiful plan and now it's nothing. Like, that's probably hopefully the wrong mindset to go into something with, is like, we've spent 90 days coming up with this plan and we expect it to be perfect for the next 360 days. Like, that's, hopefully you don't go into anything thinking that, because you're going to end up being very disappointed if that's the case.
Right.
In software anyway.
I am just like having flashbacks. I can just think of so many occasions where sometimes it's not even like internally the org that we work in, but sometimes it can be like, oh, what if our partner does this giant business change and we're just informed of that change, right? Because sometimes it's really just out of your control. You can't go tell the other org and be like, no, don't do that because we have this pretty shiny roadmap. Yep. Like, that doesn't happen. And I feel like that is just as traumatic to just comparing to, oh, COVID happened. It's just all these external factors that, because it's either you can do something about it or you cannot. And this is categorized into the part that you just cannot control. And
Yep.
you know, so those do happen. And I like that you really keep stressing the importance of being flexible and keeping the roadmap very high level in a way that is a direction, but not feature release plans. So I think that explains why you bring this up over and over again of how not to plan a roadmap that doesn't last. That makes sense. And I can only imagine how sad it feels when it does happen, but I guess respect for all product managers that have to deal with that often. Last question that I do want to know is, what does it look like on the team when the roadmap is successfully planned, and how does, like, let's say for me, like product designer, and for like engineers, other people that are involved in the product development process, what does that look like when we have a good roadmap?
Yeah, I think that it is very much, I think it's an empowering thing because it gives everybody on the team the ability to understand what we're working on. So first off, why we're working on it. So the vision of what we're trying to achieve and what we're doing specifically over the next little while. And then also what we're not doing. So it gives everybody kind of that alignment of, here's what we're going to be focused on and here's what we're not going to be focused on. And so being able to say no to certain things, which is, I think, a really important part of it, because not everything is going to be part of, what we're doing. And so helping everybody understand, why we're doing it, how that's going to be driving value for our product, for our users, for our business, and then what specifically everybody's contribution is going to be, and how, as we learn and, figure things out, then how that changes. So everybody gets a real chance to see the impact that it's making, and then have, a say in, what's coming next. I think for me, that's a really empowering thing, like as a product team, to really own, we're not just delivering features that somebody's saying, hey, you need to be doing this thing. Like, it's not an executive saying, hey, we want, we want these buttons on the product and we want it to do this specific thing, and sales coming and saying, hey, we need these 3 things because client ABC said so. And it's not just the team isn't just taking like orders from all different sides. It's much more about, here's what we're trying to achieve, and we're going to be figuring out how to do that. It's not, everybody kind of telling us what to do and how to do it. And so that's a real empowering thing. And I think everybody feels that, and you're driving towards it, and then you see the results, and then you recalibrate as you go. So if there's changes that need to be made, you're making those changes because you really own not only the product, but the outcome that it's driving. And if you don't achieve that outcome, you need to go back and figure out why you didn't, and then, retool it so that you can achieve that outcome, and having kind of the bandwidth and trust to do those sorts of things. So I think that that's what it looks like and feels like for a really successful team. And that's going a little bit beyond the roadmap, but I think the roadmap is a tool for that, and kind of a demonstration of that from a really empowered product team. That's, I think, one of the big differences.
Yeah. In my experience from working with product managers on roadmaps is that first and foremost, it's like no surprises. Like, me as part of the team, I shouldn't see something on the roadmap and have no idea what it is, right? And hopefully that applies to, everybody on the team. Nobody should see it and be like, wait, what is that? And like we have talked about, like it helps to bring everyone together and align, what everyone's working on from a very, high bird's eye view. But I think that is true, that it is empowering, because then I know that I am adhering to the greater plan when it comes to planning out what, the product design team is doing and how we can make sure we get there. I think that really brings the whole team together. I mean, it's not only for the product, but the team together. Like, I really, really like that point. And now that I think about it, there was one instance where I saw something on someone's roadmap that I was like, wait a minute, this definitely involves my team, but why do I have no idea what this is? Well, in that case too, it's like a good opportunity for me to have that conversation with that product manager and say, I see that you're doing this thing. Like, let's talk about this. And then if we didn't have that roadmap, I would never know about that part. Yeah. And yeah, so in that case, I am grateful that it is a visible and tangible thing that we can use. And like we've talked about, it is a very, I guess, essential tool to the entire process of developing your product. And I really do like how you talk about how to approach the roadmap and what it is and what it is not. And man, I really do feel like this is probably one of the best episodes. Can I say that out loud? On record. And yeah, I do think that this is one of the most essential tools that our product managers, can use to make sure we are building the right things, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think that having it and using it correctly is important, not just for a product team, but for an entire organization. So when you're doing it right, you'll see just the benefits of it. And then if you're not, it makes it just so much more difficult for everybody. So getting there can be difficult, and it's often lots of fits and starts, and you have to kind of tailor it for specific organizations and how everybody works. There's certainly not one size fits all, especially given how if nobody has used product roadmaps before, which has been the case in a number of places that I've seen, it's a process for getting there, and so just expect that. I think places that have been using them for a while and are comfortable, making sure that you get them to the point where it's not necessarily Gantt chart release plan style roadmap is the next step if you're kind of doing that. But I think that regardless, the principles are kind of the same, whether you're starting from scratch or kind of moving along the continuum.
Beautiful. Anything else that people should know about how to build a roadmap, or anything else to watch for?
I think that's it. There's lots of good articles, and we'll link some in the show notes that lots of folks have written that I've leveraged, that I've also written myself, entitled Product Roadmaps Love, Hate, and Hate. So I'll link that one as well.
That title. Great title.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Sweet. I really do love this episode because I think it is, again, so important, and so many. I just love that every time, again, we just always go back to communication is key. Yep. and keeping everyone informed. And I do think that like roadmaps is definitely the thing that you must keep everyone informed with what's going on and when you make changes and stuff. And again, respect for all product managers out there that have to constantly make changes and keep on planning. So,
yep.
And on that note, we now go into our, what is that? Hangout corner? Hangout zone? I can't remember what we call it.
Yeah, the shout out and gripe zone.
Oh, are we officially adding gripes in there?
I think I don't know if it's official or not, but it's been part of it.
It is so on paper.
Yeah.
It is very much printed in poster size on the wall.
Yeah.
Hangout and gripe zone. Speaking of which, do not print your roadmap on poster size and post it in your office. It will be replaced in 2 weeks. Yeah. Anyways, and should I go first? I have one that I'm very excited about. This is a Chrome plugin that I've been using for many, many years. I actually don't remember when it came out or when I started using it, but it's called the Black Menu for Google. If you use Chrome, 100% get it, especially if you have Gmail, which I am guessing a lot of you do, or if you use Google Docs, Google Sheet, Google Maps, Google anything, get this plugin. It is from an independent developer. I cannot pronounce his name because he is... Why does everybody have names that I cannot pronounce. I need to take a class and just like, is there a class that teach people how to pronounce names, or just, I know they teach how to pronounce things from, what is that called? Phonetic pronunciation class.
Yeah, phonetics.
But anyways, I'm looking at the developers page, but the page doesn't even say his name. But I've looked it up before and it's very hard to pronounce. Anyways, Black menu for Google. What it does is that it is a little tab after you click on the logo of the plugin in Chrome. It pulls down this pop-up and you type in the file that you're searching in Sheet, and then, or you type in the name of the email that you're looking for, and it pulls it right up in that window. Sorry, it's not a window. I don't know why I called it a pop-up. It's just like a panel that overlays on your Chrome window, and it is super duper convenient. It is probably one of the best plugins, if not the best, that I have used, because it never really breaks. I've never encountered any outage, and it's just super easy to use.
Nice.
Do you know about it, Kyle?
I don't, but I'm looking at it right now. So
try it out. It is so convenient. Oh, the best part is that if you have your personal Gmail and your work Gmail account or Drive and everything on your laptop, like if you need quick access to dig up something from your personal drive or something from your work drive, it takes 0.125 seconds to switch between your accounts. It is scientifically proven with that timer. Anyways, it is a great plugin.
Nice.
So the end.
Very cool.
What is your shout out?
So we'll give a shout out to, when we were talking a little bit about this before our episode started, Bounce Houses, which
yes.
which have been a really big part of our our spring and summer. We got, when all of our vacation plans were canceled,
Oh, really? Why?
We ended up getting a bounce house for our kids. And it's been actually right before we started recording, I went out and set it up. And so our kids are outside playing on it. I think they've been running in and out. So you may have heard them for a second earlier, but yeah, they have been playing on it pretty hard because with the weather cooling down again, they're able to kind of play during the day, which has been fun. But yeah, it's pretty cool. And they are doing some really cool stuff with bounce houses as far as in between ones that aren't the super expensive industrial ones that you would go to a bounce park or a carnival, but also not the cheap flimsy ones that you can't have too many people on or anything like that. So in between still can hold adults and kids, but not super heavy, super expensive. So it's pretty cool stuff.
I also imagine that the bounce houses that you see in carnivals and the ones that you can rent out are purchases made in the 90s and they just keep ducking over. That's kind of what I imagine. And I almost can see in my head the one you have is the Tesla of bounce houses type.
Yeah. I don't know if I call it the Tesla in price point, but in it's definitely high quality, lightweight and durable, but not super expensive. So anyway, that's
awesome.
Yeah, it's great. Kids have loved it. It's definitely been nice, especially given the fact that we have been homebound over, obviously the last little while. So it's made things more fun. And that was our spring break vacation, which progressively got more and more canceled. We had planned a family vacation. And then as things were happening, we realized that traveling probably wasn't a good idea. This was before travel restrictions, before anybody realized what was the full extent. And we're maybe we shouldn't travel anywhere. And then as things just started to pick up speed earlier this year, we started to plan a staycation, and then staycation just totally went out the window. And we're no, everything's closing. Nothing's going to happen. So we should plan a staycation in our backyard. And that's exactly what happened.
I really would love to see that bounce house. If you don't mind texting me a photo of it.
I'll text you a photo.
I feel like out of all the things that you have brought up in previous episodes, like what is that? The tree grinder? What is that you brought up? The tree thing.
Yeah. I forgot the name of it, but
hydraulic tree.
Yep.
Thing.
Yep. The tree mill. I'll have to
tree mill. That's right.
The log milling machine. Yep.
That one I can Google, and I don't really care about that one as much as the bounce house, because I do feel like I'm like, maybe I'll get one of those for my future kids. Like, who knows? This is one of those things that I just never thought of buying, but then it's like, oh yeah, what are you going to do with your kids at home? This is very helpful. And I'm sure all 20,000 of our listeners, want to I don't know. Can you link us? Is that from Amazon or?
It was from Amazon. I think I'll have to see. I know that they were selling out rapidly, like when we bought it, because it was like right as the pandemic was happening. And so, like we had to hop on that one pretty fast. They might be back in stock though. I don't know. I'll have to take a look. We haven't looked in a long time, obviously, because
you have your own bounce house, so you don't care.
Yeah, we have the bounce house now, so maybe we'll add more bounce houses in the future. We'll see. We'll have a whole bouncy park in our backyard.
Just say that's your other. What is that called? People have timeshare. Your vacation home. You can call that bounce house your vacation home, and just live your day there and go sleep in your actual house.
Yeah. Well, with the weather cooling down, it's perfect time for it. Yeah. So the bounce house.
That's awesome. Yep. The perk of being a homeowner. That's another layer to it.
Yep.
That's so awesome. I hope one day Colby and I were looking and we stopped, and then now the housing market is just weird. So anyways, hopefully we'll get a house soon, and you might be buying some bouncy house.
There you go.
Who knows?
First purchase.
Sorry to take a sharp left, but I do have a gripe that I have to share.
Yeah.
This is very personal. As we're all stuck at home, and I don't know why I'm buying shoes, but I'm buying shoes since I need some new shoes to commute from my bedroom to my desk in the living room for work nowadays. So I just noticed this thing, and it's a fairly common thing. I've seen it more than once. Every time when it happens, when it's in my face, I'm like, why is this happening? So I'm sure you all relate. So when you go online shopping, doesn't matter what it is, clothing, shoes, or whatever, anything that you have to choose sizes. I cannot understand why it is designed in a way that, let's say if I wear, let's use shoes as an example. So let's say if you're in between 6 or 7 or whatever shoe size you are, I can do 6, I can do 7. So I will choose both of these filter options in the filter drop down, right? The thing that bugs me so much is that when I hit 6, the page already is loading the filter, taking in that input and generating all 6s, right? But in fact, I'm like, wait a minute, I want to put in one more filter, don't. And then it's already, the filter is already closed and ready to show you all the size 6, right? And it is so annoying. And, I do want to confidently say that most people have more than one size that they put in the filter, or more than one option that they put in. I don't know. Do you do that? Can I say that?
Filter on more than one size shoe.
Or like even shirt and like stuff, Is it just me? I thought a lot of people do this.
Shoes, probably not as much, but yes, definitely I would on shirts. Yes. So I would filter probably on like 2 sizes of shirts. Yeah.
Especially like on clearance or sales pages, how they just dump
for sure.
All shoe, all shirt, everything in there. And when I choose like size this, size that, size whatever, and every time I have to go through one page load, and then the second option it loads again, third option it loads again, and why do you have to do this? Why can't I just choose everything and then submit all the changes
and then apply? Yep,
and that is my gripe. very personal, and tweet at me if you feel the same way. I know I'm not alone. There's no way I'm alone in this, especially all the sales and clearance lovers. I know you have the same pain.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense on sales and clearance for sure. I've definitely searched like multiple sizes on that, and especially if there's like half sizes, for sure.
Yep. Yeah, because it's just a whole bucket of sizes.
Yeah,
and there are 30 plus options.
Yep.
Anyways, so that's my gripe. And I mean, I do appreciate that I run into these things in the wild, and I know, let's not do this when we work on that product. So yeah, that is it.
Okay.
Do you have any gripe?
No, I don't think so.
I feel like Kyle is like all love, no hate. And then I'm always like, let's talk about what's bad. Just kidding. I bring some love too, but sometimes I have a little gripes.
Yeah. I'll have to come up. I'll come up with something for our next one.
Sweet. And this is it.
Cool.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. You can find out more about us and our podcast on our website at productbydesign.co. You can also follow us on Twitter at prodbydesign. That's at prod_by_design. You can follow me on Twitter at Kyle Larry Evans. And you can also find Eva on Twitter at Yan Chow Chow. See you next time.